Good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Manfredi, the Nevada Arts Council Executive Director and co-panel chair for today's FY22 Artist Fellowship Grant in Visual Arts Two-Dimensional Works category. I call day 2 of this meeting to order at 10:11 a.m., Wednesday, February 22nd, 2022. This fiscal year 23 Artist Fellowship Grant in Visual Arts Two-Dimensional Works review meeting is
2023.
Sorry, yes, that is true. It is 2023. Thank you, Harry. Wishful thinking, maybe? I'm not sure. 2023. This is a continuation of the panel meeting that was conducted on February 21st, 2023. That was yesterday, where round 1 applications were reviewed and scored. This public meeting is being recorded, so please be sure to identify yourself each time you speak and to speak loudly and clearly so that your comments will be clearly recorded. This way, audience members can hear you. At this time, will Stephen Reed from Nevada Arts Council staff, will you confirm that this meeting has been properly posted?
This is Stephen Reed. For the record, it has been properly posted.
Thank you, Stefan. This is Tony. We begin our Nevada Arts Council meeting by acknowledging that we gather today from the ancestral homelands of the Numu, the Niue, and the Nuwuvi, and the Washishu, who have lived in the Great Basin since time began. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude to our 4 major indigenous groups, the Northern Paiute, the Shoshone, the Southern Paiute, and the Washoe, not just the original caretakers of the land we now call Nevada, but for their enduring stewardship and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Today, the Nevada Arts Council reaffirms its commitment to improve the quality of life for our 27 tribal nations, bands, colonies, and the 62,000 plus urban Indians who choose to make Nevada their current home. Thank you to those joining us on day 2 of this virtual meeting. Your attendance shows your commitment to Nevada's arts industry. And on behalf of the staff and board of the Nevada Arts Council, I commend and thank you for all you do. At this time, we will proceed to agenda item 3, roll call and introductions. I will now reintroduce our panelists: Kim Stringfellow, Barry Johnson, Barbara Sternberger, right here. And then if Nevada Arts Council staff and our Deputy Attorney General and Gail Rappa, our board member, will introduce themselves as well. I will begin with Stephen Reed.
Hi, Stephen Reed, the Nevada Arts Council Artist Services up in the Carson City office.
Thank you, Stephen. Krista.
Good morning. I'm Krista Ficken from the Grants Program in the Carson City office.
Thank you, Krista. Sapira.
Sapira Chirk, Artist Service Specialist in the Las Vegas office.
And Gail.
Hi, this is Gail Rappa. I am on the Nevada Arts Council board, and I'm joining you guys from Elko. And Sapira, when you get a second, can you turn my video on, please?
Thank you. I think Stefan has to do it.
Okay, thank you.
And Deputy Attorney General Harry Ward, please.
Deputy Attorney General Harry Ward, Carson City.
Thank you all. This is Tony. We will now move to agenda item B, public comment. A period of public comment will be allowed at the beginning and end of the meeting. Members of the public who wish to participate during a public meeting may do so by providing public comments during the 2 designated public comment periods. Members of the public attending may not speak during the public comment section, except during the public comment section. Public comments may be submitted via email to sreed@nevadaculture.org. Because of time considerations, the period of public comment by each speaker may be limited to 3 minutes at the discretion of the chair, and speakers are urged to avoid repetition of comments made by previous speakers. Applicants who are attending today do not have an unfair advantage over those who are not in attendance, and the committee will not take public comment regarding any grant applications under consideration. Is there anyone joining today's meeting who wishes to provide public comment? And this is Tony. I see no hands raised in the attendees section of our webinar. Stefan or Sapira or Krista, have any of you received any via email? Seeing none.
For the record, no.
Thank you. This is Tony again. We will move on to all panelists previously received information regarding conflict of interest. And during yesterday's panel meeting on February 21st, all panelists confirmed that they had no conflicts of interest. All right, so we will now move to select the applications that will move forward into round 2. During yesterday's first round meeting, panelists conducted an extensive review that consisted of robust and thoughtful discussion and critique of all 66 applications that were received. Krista, will you please share the results of the scoring in ranked order on screen now? Okay, thank you, Krista. This is Tony again. Nevada Arts Council staff reviewed the scoring after the meeting yesterday, and we found a recommended break point at an average score of 24. We're going to give all of our panelists some ample time to look at this and review, to see to take your thoughts and see if there are any specific applications that you would like to discuss. And ultimately, if you feel that 24-point break is a good breaking point to bring and move forward for discussion in round 2, or if you feel we should include others at this time. So take your time. There's no hurry here. We want to make sure you give, if there's any application that you'd like to look at and discuss, please call that out. And I know this is kind of difficult to look at it right now. So again, just take your time. We can review any application that you'd like. And if you, again, would like to see a different breakpoint, let's please bring it up for discussion, and ultimately we'll all decide and confirm which groups we feel would be the ones to move forward.
Tony, I have a question.
Of course,
This is
yeah.
Kim Stringfellow. I would like to review these, and it's hard to just do by the numbers. So I request that we look at these to just refresh, be able to spend some time so we can each look at these again. So if we have any questions, we know what we're discussing. Is that okay?
Sure. And so this is Tony again. And so are you, can you just kind of give me some specifics of what you're proposing?
I need some time to search through the submissions and
Sure.
just refresh my memory on each of these 13 submissions.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Take your time. Yep.
This is Barry. Also, to echo Kim's point, can we have this? Could you email this to us?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
I'm writing it down on a piece of paper, but yeah, that would be helpful. The 13, so I can look through these and make some notes.
We can go ahead and send the score sheet. Krista, can you do that, please?
Sure. Are we sticking with just these top 12?
Yes.
I'd like to see everything, actually.
I think send the whole sheet, that whole sheet.
Okay.
Okay. Send that whole sheet. That way, if there's any in that lower section that anyone would like to see, we can talk about it.
Thank
I'll
you.
get it right over.
And what we can do is allow you some time to view that. We can take a brief recess in the meeting and start back up if that seems agreeable to everyone.
I would like to request that we take a brief break offline. We could stay on the Zoom call. And if that's all right with the other panelists, 10, 15 minutes to be able to refresh our memory so we know what we're looking at here, and then come back online.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and take a brief recess? We'll do 15 minutes if that sounds good. So why don't we come back at 10, what's that going to be? 10:35. Does that work for everyone?
It'll take me a couple of minutes to get it sent over.
Okay, let's do it at 10. Why don't we reconvene at 10:45?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. All right, can everyone hear me okay? This is Tony. All right, welcome back. One moment. Okay, we will now reconvene this meeting and call it to order at 10:45 a.m. Panelists have had time to review the round one scoring, and I'll now open it up to our panelists for further discussion. So
starting with a certain applicant?
Sorry, let me be more clear. Thoughts on the break that our staff provided? If there are any other applicants that you would want to discuss further that are not included in that break, if you'd like to add more for discussion in round two, any and all of the above. So we're not going to look at, like, if there are specific applicants that you'd like to discuss, please let us know that now. Let us know your thoughts on the break at the average score of 24 and higher, etc.
Okay.
And I can begin by calling on each of you specifically, or if you just want to feel comfortable in expressing your thoughts.
This is Kim Stringfellow. I am comfortable with the 24 or above selection, which is 13 applicants.
Yes, this is Barbara, and I agree. I was fine when I reviewed them, and I have no problem with the can we call it short list?
The the recommended round two applicants. Why don't we say that?
Okay. I'm good with that.
This is Barry. I'm fine with the average score. I would want to call into question one of the applicants that was not able to get on the next round of selection, and would just pose to my panelists that we have a quick fireside chat about them. That would be application 0078. The last score of 0096 was at a 24. This application ended up getting a 23.3. I feel like they're in the close call that perhaps we could have just a quick conversation about them if my panelists would be up for it.
Sure.
Hold on.
Okay, great. So are we freely open to talk about the applicants as we did yesterday?
This is Tony, for the record. Yes. And if you will, just please remember, just a couple clarifications. So the number, and I know it was stated that, and Krista, please don't mark that one as green yet, the 23.3. Thank you. That'll be one that we discuss, but the applicants, there was stated there were 13. It's actually 12. It's got a little deceiving because the applicant number. So there'd be 12 applicants that were recommended moving forward. The panel has agreed to discuss 0078, and we'll go ahead and just have an open conversation about that as we did yesterday. So yeah, keep it. And if you prefer, I can call on you one at a time like we did yesterday, or you all, I think, are comfortable enough just talking it through.
Yeah, I think we're comfortable enough at this point.
That sounds great. That's just please, this again, Tony, just please make sure that you give your name before your comments.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I say it early that I just keep talking. This is Barry. Good morning, Kim and Barbara. How are you today?
Good. However, I do want to say we're having a big windstorm here, and it's quite possible that the power might just zap off. So if all of a sudden I'm gone, that's because we're having a bit of a windstorm here.
We had it last night.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
outrageous.
we got hit with it last night as well.
Okay.
Okay, so as you all recall, yesterday we had a pretty in-depth conversation about the artist that is kind of tapping into the Cubist style of work. I do want to bring up that this work also seems to broach a little bit of that new work that we had talked about in the realm of Afrofuturism. There are, as we talked about, some head nods to some historical references. There is a large scale of work that is coming from this applicant as well. I did a quick look at each individual medium that the top 12 finalists are in. This is kind of fits within the mode of everyone else, but I did just, since they did get a 23.3, want to pose if we advance them to just have a deeper discussion about them and where you all think on that. I know that personally I had marked them higher. I enjoy the work. I love the breadth of it. I love the conversation about it. I know that we had a pretty in-depth conversation about like what it's about, where it's going. But I would just as a passion vote, would definitely want to ask that we just give them some eyes again.
Mhm. I have a question for, I think it's important to state what this list represents in terms of the fellowship, how many awards. Can we just go over what this list, and then there's also going to be another group of 3D, so we can have kind of an idea of you know, how many awards. I think that's important to state again publicly, you know, this is, can we do that?
Yeah, this is Tony for the record. So we have, this is the first year that we've broken up the 2D and 3D applications for the fellowship, doing two separate panels. That's after a lot of discussion within, you know, a lot of open discussion amongst our citizens here in terms of, you know, trying to find trying to open up some of that. So we have funding right now identified for a total of 5 fellowship five fellowship recipients. That's a combination of 2D and 3D. I'm currently in process of reviewing to see if we can find additional funding. I believe we have the possibility of doing that based on some additional funding that has come our way and hasn't yet been spent. So we may be able to open that up to possibly 6. Ultimately, what you will all be doing is presenting a ranked list to our board of trustees that will decide, you know, which ones will receive awards. So I would say at most right now, I mean, would be the top 6 would be the possibility of receiving awards. And frankly, it could be as low as 3, and it could be, you know, as many as 6. So I think it's a good question, Kim, because obviously where some of these applicants rank, will they, you know, reach that point? Now, you all are going to discuss them at length again in this second round. And we've seen scores change from first rounds to second rounds. So I think it's important that we look at all of this and not exclude, you know, necessarily exclude anybody just because they're low on the list. However, that is the reality. We wish we had funding for all of those, but we don't. And so the reality of our situation is we're probably looking at max 6 people who could receive funding. And it's more likely that will be 3 or 4.
Okay.
This is Barry for the record. Wait, so you're saying that out the 5, so the 2D and 3D, so there's another panel that's convening on the 3D. So
yeah.
Okay, got it.
And so what we're looking at, this is Tony again. It's obviously going to be really challenging for us to compare this panel review with that 3D panel review. And so what we're doing is we're actually kind of keeping them separate. However, we have 66 applications in this bucket, and we have roughly 25 in the 3D bucket. So we're trying to find some balance and equity and parity in number of 2D versus number of 3D. So it's a bigger discussion. And ultimately, we're going to bring our board into this too, so that we can find the right path through. So you all will be providing a rank score review. We're going to share all of these numbers with our board. So it will be from 1 to 66. And the board takes your panel recommendations very seriously. It's, you know, you had a really robust conversation yesterday, and I do not want that to be forgotten because you all did such a great job and you talked through each of these and had back and forth on each of these and adjusted scores where you felt comfortable in doing that. So, you know, this first rank score is really, really good. And now we're going to take it to that next level and kind of dive into some of those scores.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is Kim. Barry, yeah, I would like to revisit this applicant, but I believe we need to do this in the context of this list we have here, considering what was just explained to us.
Agreed.
And, you know, I think for the public to understand when we're looking at these, we're looking at, you know, we have these clear directives of 1, 2, and 3,
Right.
but we're also looking at, you know, these impacts in the community at large, you know, and I think myself, I've stated that I am a type of artist that's interested in public social practice in a way that work that is benefiting communities, and it could be specific communities. And so just understand that we come from different places. We have 2 painters. I'm primarily a transmedia artist. I work in photography and a lot of other media. And so that's what we're bringing to this discussion. And so we're making a lot of considerations, but, you know, these are very nuanced. And so I just want the public to understand that, that, you know, we take this very seriously.
This is Tony. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate those comments. At this time, do you want to discuss that
78,
that applicant?
yes.
Okay.
I would, this is Kim. I think Barry just brought up something I think is very interesting about the Afrofuturism aspect of this work. And we didn't really discuss that yesterday. And it's opening up my perspective on this particular body of work. And so I'm just curious, Barbara, how you may feel about discussing this and maybe looking at.
And we're looking at applicant 0078, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is Kim again. To make this clear, we can change our rankings at this period. Okay, we can change.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
Tony. Just keep in mind that right, yeah, you can change your scores. We'll just want justification as to why.
Mhm.
One of the things I want to keep in mind and just be careful that the panel, you know, now you're seeing why your scores matter, right? So
Yeah.
suddenly it's this, oh, well, now the next group. And so we can find, and Barry, you had mentioned something about 23.3 and 24. We looked at the scoring, and I think we can start to look at, well, then what about 22.2 and what about 23? So I want to be careful we don't start getting like they all got to come over, because we are going to have to make some decisions ultimately, and we are going to have to score. And ultimately timing of this will be that we want to make sure we give a good, robust review for second round. So it is difficult to have to make those cuts. We understand that. You know, just keep in mind that we want to be careful this doesn't start to crescendo into, well, now we want this person to get another look and this one to get another look. So, okay.
Okay, so this is Barbara. And I don't know if you guys remember yesterday when we spoke about this applicant, but it was one of the ones that I spent the most time on, and was the one that I was on the fence about in terms of my scoring. I still think the body of work is really good. I think, you know, the way he's putting the juxtaposition of the Afro element into these paintings and switching the way we look at them. And I think I don't know who it is. I think the artist is really, handles the paint really well. I don't think I gave the artist a low score, but let me get back to it. Hold on, where is it? 78. Yeah, I gave a score of 23. Kim gave a score of 20, and you gave a score of 27. And I would be willing to bump it up to put him in the 24 mark. That's my opinion.
This is Kim. Mine is the lowest score, and I feel that I am also willing to go up another point. So this is going to change the score significantly.
Yeah.
In the ranking.
This is Barry. I just wanted to bring that up to Tony. This is the only passion vote that you typically, when you're doing panels, that I have. So it was just this one applicant and no one else. I don't know about anyone else, but it was just that one applicant. And I also do have a question for all Nevada people, the people that are created this on the call. How do we approach this notion of equity and inclusion? We can't see anything based on gender, race, or anything. I understand that entirely, but whenever we are taking into account equity and inclusion, is there any counsel that you could provide us on that, or are we just purely basing it on the merits of each individual application?
This is Tony. Thanks, Barry. It's a great question. We are a lot of what we're trying to do is, so the fellowships have been a concealed review since their inception. There's discussion about that because of wanting to make sure that no one necessarily knew names and knew a lot of things. And so that's kind of how that's been. We have been working on, where we are able to, as a state entity, our equity in our work, making sure that we are getting the word out that to as many artists as possible in Nevada to apply. We have adjusted and simplified our application process, taking away a lot of the barriers that have historically been in place around education or access, et cetera. So trying to be as exclusive and inclusive as we can and are able to. And again, we have to operate within our state guidelines, and Harry can certainly talk about some of that. If you would like to, Harry, go ahead.
For the record, Harry Ward, Deputy Attorney General. Mr. Executive Director, you are so correct. Basically, what we do is we make sure that the general public and everyone knows that we are diversified, inclusive, that we get the word out, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as an individual application, we cannot do any more because I think it would be unfair. So we're doing our best, and we're doing everything within the law, or even exceeding what we can do as far as getting the word out. But other than that, this council is doing a great job.
This is Barry. Yeah, I'm not questioning that y'all are not doing that. I want to make very clear on that. I was just, as a first time being on this council, just really asking that. So thank y'all for what you're doing. I'm in full agreement in the way the applications were set up, but I just wanted to pose that question. Thank you.
And this is Tony, for the record. If I could just add one more part of this. One of the things that we're doing, outside of the, this is we're working really hard to get into all of our communities, whether that's our rural populations, our communities of color, our LGBTQ populations, really our native populations, working really hard to build up that trust and understanding And that's a really concerted effort that our agency is doing to open up more and more access and understanding that everyone is welcome here. And conversations like this, and we'll have a little debrief with you all afterwards, where we want to get your opinions on how the process went, where ways you think we can improve, where ways you think that we did great, et cetera. So yeah, we want to be as open in that as possible. And our hope is to get it, make sure that this is as inclusive as we can. The concealed reviews are in a way to be, to really move in that equitable way. But we also see challenges with that too, right? Because we know, we don't know who these folks are. I know we don't know some of those scenarios. So it's a work in progress. I will say that.
This is Kim. I'd like to follow up. Yes, and we do, we have a portfolio of work, and then we have a statement. And statements can reveal certain things about the individual. And that's a given. And those things, and oftentimes who a person is has a lot to do with the creative work they are producing, especially if it's autobiographical in nature, or self-referential. So those are things that I think we are aware, but as judges and being fair, we're looking at these three, clear demonstration of artist intent and process, consistency and exceptional caliber of the work, evidence of artistic impact and influence within a specific community or genre of art. And I think that specific community is very important too, because when we're seeing that, but I think we have to, for me, I'm trying to be very, very fair and not balance or take that when I have an awareness about an applicant's work and trying to look at it in a very fair way. And it is difficult, but that's what we're doing here. So, just want to be clear about that, it is very important, but, we have to be open, and it's challenging to rank these.
I'd like to add, this is Barbara, and I agree with a lot of the points that both Kim and Barry just made. But I do want to point out that with the community impact or genre, and impact on a genre would, kind of lean towards what we've been talking about on a lot of these applicants in terms of originality, or is it outsider art, or so given the thing of genre, as a painter, and Barry is a painter as well, when I saw or viewed some of the applicants that were either in video or photography, I had to put my limited expertise in line there, and that's where the help of my other panelists comes into being, and that's where I think our discussion should go to, that it's not just community, it's community and genre, or genre. And I just want to point that out.
Yeah, thank you. And this is Kim again. I deferred because painters, that's not my medium.
Right, exactly.
And I'm aware of, because of my training, but we each have our specialties.
Yes.
And this is Tony, and we're watching you all work, and we see that for sure. And it's why we try to get as diverse a panel as we can and make sure. And again, you all have been doing a wonderful job of that, of really feeding off of each other and communicating with each other. And Barry, you had mentioned, your passion person. That's great. I mean, what we want you to feel comfortable about the group that's moving over. And that's why we give you the opportunity to take a look at it and make adjustments and changes, because ultimately we want to make sure that you all are comfortable that those who are moving into that next round are worthy of being there, and we didn't lose or miss someone. So everything is great. Yeah, you all are doing a really, really great job.
This is Barry. Yeah, I think that this is a great way to level set for a very difficult discussion that we're going to have for the day. But it's really good that we have this. This is what we're doing as arts advocate and artists. Like, this is what we talked about with real activism, is like having those very difficult but very necessary conversations about the work, its community impact, and everything else around it. So I just want to thank everybody for that quick sidebar. And yeah, I'm really happy to move forward now.
Great. So this is Tony. So what we'll do is, Krista, if you could pull up the scoring again, we'll go ahead and look for a rescore of the application in question. Sorry, not in round two, Krista. We're going to go back to the round one scores. Yep. Thank you.
I thought that they said they wanted to bring it in round two. I apologize. Give me just a moment. Okay.
Okay, and at this stage, we'll go ahead and I'll call on each of you one at a time, and you can give your adjusted score and reason why for AFG 230078. We'll go ahead and begin with Kim.
I'm raising my score 1 point, and I feel that there would be greater impact in terms of the third point. And so I decided I'm going to raise it 1 point in thinking about that.
Okay, thank you. Barry?
This is Barry. I'm confirming my score of 27.
Thank you.
This is Barbara, and I am raising my score 1 point after further scrutiny of the applicant and hearing the passionate introduction that Barry gave. So I'm raising it 1 point, and I feel comfortable with that. Thank you.
Okay. Krista, if you could go ahead and just do the confirmation of that and the average score, and then we'll move forward from there.
Absolutely. Final panel scores in round one for application 0078 are Kim 21, Barry 27, and Barbara 23 or 24 for an average score of 24 even.
Okay. Are there any other applicants that are below that any panelists would like to further discuss?
This is Barbara. I'd like to say something. It's difficult when we're just looking at numbers. So I'd have to go through and visually, correspond the number to the applicant to know, whether or not I feel like I'd like to discuss it. So by just looking at the numbers like this, it would take a long time for me to figure out, like for example, I don't know what number
Barbara, this is Kim. If you pull up your submittable account, you can do a search for these individual numbers and you can pull those up and
right.
And that, discussing.
Yeah, that I've done, and I've actually created a short list. But in terms of finding one that didn't make the short list that I did like, and just looking at the list or the numbers, it's hard for me to, say, okay, yeah, let's push this one forward. So
this is
that would take more time.
This is Tony for the record. So we spent time at the beginning portion of the meeting where we adjourned and you looked at everything, correct? You looked at the scoring sheet and we came back.
I looked at the 13.
The 12, right? Okay.
Well, yeah, the 12, now 13. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel comfortable moving on. I do.
This is Kim. I looked through the 20 up to 20 in the list just to make sure. And I am fine with our selections with the addition of the change that we just did. So I went through and took notes, and I'm happy with this 12 break and above for the short list.
This is Barry. I also looked at 20 and up through the list, and I'm fine with where we are now.
Okay. And And this is Tony for the record. Barbara, are you okay with moving forward with those 24 and above?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So with that, we will go ahead and move on to round 2, where you all will discuss that group of 13. At this stage, I'm going to hand off the panel chair duties to our board member, Gail Rappa. You are in wonderful, capable hands. I will be on if needed and listening. But thank you all. I appreciate what you've done so far and look forward to listening as you proceed. So with that, I pass it over to Gail.
Okay, thank you so much, Tony. This is Gail Rappa for the record. So just for clarification, Tony, it's showing on item 6. Is that correct where I'm starting?
This is Tony for the record. Yes, that is correct. So
Okay.
you begin round 2. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item C for possible action, review of round 2 FY23 Artist Fellowship grant and visual artist 2-dimensional work category applications. In the second round, we'll allow more time for discussion if needed. I will state the application number, then panelists will discuss the application. After the discussion, Nevada Arts Council staff will ask each panelist to state their name and the round 2 score for that application. Once the scores have been tabulated, we will put the score sheet on screen for panelists to review. If there's a large discrepancy in scores between panelists on a certain application, the staff may ask panelists to clarify their scores through discussion. Panelists will have the opportunity to adjust their scores at this time. If a panelist changes a score, please state the adjusted score and justification for the change. The Nevada Arts Council staff will determine if we move on to a third and final round.
This is Barry for the record. Just to kind of get to the end goal of today, it'd be good to know, are we ultimately kind of arriving on 5 to 6 people? It would just be good to know that as we're like zeroing in with our next push of applicants.
So this is Tony again for the record. What you'll do is just rank those candidates, knowing that, because again, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to submit this entire list to the board for review, but they will be ranked. And so knowing that at most 6 would be, at the very most, 6 would be awarded, with the reality that it's probably 3 or 4 who would be awarded. That's what you're looking at. So ultimately that top, I would say the top 5 are going to, you're going to want to make sure you're feeling comfortable that those are ranked the way you feel they should be ranked.
This is Barry. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm looking at, are we going to have the application numbers up on the screen?
Hi, Stephen Reed for the record. Hi, Gail. Yeah, in the script right below, you'll see the applications listed there. You could just start with application 43. Do you see those down there at the bottom?
Yeah, I do. I just don't know if that list has changed now that we've.
Yeah, the only thing that's changed, we've added application 78 at the bottom.
Okay.
43 is not the first one, though 17 is.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Gail, I sent you the little list in the comments too, so you can see it that way.
Yep, I got it. Thank you. Okay. All right, so we have the first application we're going to look at, have you guys discuss, is FAG 23-0017. And I do not, and that's the only information I have. So I just want to remind the panelists that you may ask to view specific pieces of support material during the discussion, and that some content may not be appropriate for all audiences. Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
This is Barbara, and I can start. I'm looking at our scores from yesterday, and I'm starting because I gave the highest score, and I feel comfortable with my score. And some of the criticism that was brought up on this work, I think didn't make me feel like I wanted to lower my score at all. I still feel that this is, original work. It involves a lot of special examination to the viewer. I think some of the studies, show, or, if there are indeed studies, show that as an end result, some of these more large works can really impact the community. And just, I think the expertise and the caliber, intent, and everything rises on this one. So I feel comfortable with my high score, which was 27. And I think I am the only panelist that didn't give a 30 at all. So just to emphasize that 27 is really up there for me. Okay. Barry?
This is Barry for the record. I'm sorry, I think my audio cut out. What application number are we looking at?
We're looking at
17.
application number 0017.
Oh, I thought so. Okay, perfectly. Give me 1 second here.
Kim, why don't
If
you?
you like, I can go
Yeah.
first.
Go for it. Yep.
This is Kim, and I gave this applicant a combined score of 21. I am going to stay with that particular score and my comments previously. I'm also thinking in the context of, if I'm scoring things differently, how, because I considered my entire group, I went over, did my scores, and I revisited it several times to see if I was being, had an equal bearing. So that's very important to me. So, I think this is wonderful work. It's complex. There's so much to look at. There's so much energy. One of the constructive criticisms I had is it almost reveals too much. And I would like to see something kind of held back and, and I think that is still the way I feel about the work. But yes, I think it's incredibly interesting group of paintings.
Kim, this is Barbara. I would like to add, though, that the artist's aesthetic, which is a lot of information in a single painting, that is the artist's aesthetic. And I think it doesn't necessarily have to be my aesthetic, but I think given what the artist is trying to put across, I think that using this, vast amount of information in a single painting works for what the intention is. And I also want to note, that 21 for you was a good score. I mean, because you tended to score lower and have a broader range, and whereas Barry and I were more on the higher end. So I thought this stood out to me as a good score from you.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and I think that should be made clear that I had no minimum. I was looking at each of those rankings separately, and so there was no through the 1 through 10. So yes, mine go from very low scores all the way up to 30, and that was just, I think, one applicant. So my scores are different from both Barry and Barbara in some ways, but they, as averaged, because they're consistent.
Yeah, they worked out. Yes.
Okay, is there any further discussion before we move on?
This is Barry. Yeah, I think this is a strong applicant. One thing that I really like whenever we talk about the community aspect of it all is I love that they're reinventing these old stories. They make the comment about how they do an extensive amount of research, which is really great because there's the opportunity to activate communities and kind of retell old stories. And I love how they also spoke about how they like to change out the figures to make, this whole notion of like a real time retelling of a story. So there's like an equity and inclusion play in there as well. So that being said, I'm going to stick with my score for this applicant, but I enjoy their work.
This is Barbara. I'd like to make one final comment about this work, and that has to do with time. In the world that we live in, even with painting, people will, just really quick, just look at it and move on. I think one of the things that I found was so interesting about this particular work is that the viewer is invited to spend a lot of time to really slow down and look. And I think that works to the artist's benefit. That's it.
Great, thank you all. This is Gail for the record. If there's no further discussion, I'll turn it over to the Nevada Arts Council staff to begin the scoring.
Just a moment to pop it up. I was making sure that my submittable is ready just in case you guys wanted to see anything. And this is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0017. I will start with Kim to confirm or make any changes if you like.
This is Kim. I'm keeping my score at 21.
Thank you. And Barry?
This is Barry. I'm keeping my score at 25.
Thank you. And Barbara?
This is Barbara, and I think I'll put my score at 28.
Thank you. And justification, please.
It is one of passion. I think the work merits it, and and I just think upon looking at it closer that I can move it up one more point.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application AFG 23-0017 are Kim 21, Barry 25, and Barbara 28 for an average score of 24.7.
Great, thank you, Krista. Okay, we will move on to discuss application 0043.
You should be on 2.8. I'm not sure what's in this script, but follow the one that I sent to you in the chat.
Oh, sorry about that.
0028.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
I will ignore this on my and just look at the screen. So we're looking at application 0028. And this is Gail for the record.
I have a question. So were we going from number 20 to 19 to 18? Is that how we're looking at these?
We are starting at the lowest number up to the highest number as far as application number, not as far as the ranking.
Okay, okay. I got confused.
I think that might have been what's mixed up on the script as well.
Okay, all right.
And I can go ahead and call on you individually if that's easier.
I can start. This is Kim. I had a combined score of 29 for this applicant. I feel that this is extremely strong work in terms of technique, execution, but I'm really interested in the conceptual ideas behind this project, which deals with formerly incarcerated individuals and giving a voice and meaning. And I find that it's unique and original work. I like the various explorations creatively. There's figurative representational work. There's work that kind of borders on kind of a collage, although it's painted. It's deeply nuanced in the sense that they are really exploring this subject. And I want to note that this is a former public defender, a lawyer, and I think it's amazing to see them taking this, being part of this world, and then bringing this into this creative and using it to give a voice to this world and these individuals. So I was really taken by that aspect of the work, but also the fact that it is really great painting for me. So I'll leave it at that. So my score will stay the same.
Thank you, Kim.
This is Barry. Based on the feedback that was given yesterday by my panelists, I did increase my score. And I am interested to see more of this work and learn more about how this story can unfold, and giving a voice to folks that in other circumstances wouldn't have. So I am interested to hear more of that. I will keep my score the same as I raised it yesterday.
This is Barbara. And I was really taken with this work as well. I think it's, I think the reason for my score of 26 was because of the division of the two, the more conceptual work and then the portraits. I think they're both good, but I think the portraits definitely add to the intention of the artist much more. And I feel comfortable leaving my score at 26. Okay, finished.
This is Kim. I just want to add that I gave a very strong score for artistic impact within a specific community, and also for genre of art. But that was very, I felt it was very strong. So, yeah.
Okay, this is Gail for the record. Any further discussion on application 0028? All right, hearing none. I'll turn it over to Krista to give us the score.
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0028. Barry, if we can confirm your score first.
This is Barry confirming my score of 25.
Thank you. And Barbara?
This is Barbara confirming my score at 26.
Thank you. And Kim?
This is Kim confirming my score of 29.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0028 are Kim 29, Barry 25, and Barbara 26 for an average score of 26.7.
Okay, this is Gail. Thank you for that, Krista. We will now move on, excuse me, to application 0042. And we'll open it up for discussion. I'll go ahead and just call on Barbara, and then then we
Okay,
can.
just pulling it up here. Oh, okay. Yeah, let me get to my notes here. We have, this is Barbara. Yeah, I'm glad that we're discussing this particular piece because, again, the importance of seeing this work at scale, I think, was I really want to stress how important it is. And when you blow up one of the samples that shows you on the screen, for example, I picked just one arbitrarily right now, and it was at 37%. And then I increase it to 100% to look at what it is at 100%. And the detail comes out strong. And these are really intricate paintings that a lot of the, delicate nature of some of the imagery is lost unless it's really blown up. And so I'm not sure if the other applicants blew it up or not, but it really does require some serious viewing on a closer level to get, all the nuances of the painting. I gave this applicant a score of 24. And I think just given all the other applicants and, reviewing it, I will increase my score to 25. And I'm finished talking.
This is Gail. Thank you, Barbara.
Mhm.
Barry?
This is Barry. This is an application I actually spent a lot of time thinking on yesterday. I remember making the statement of having a hard time discerning how this works really broaches the conversation of surrealism. And I talked about the pouring technique, and I really spent a lot of time thinking on that yesterday. And I am very happy to circle back on this. Reading this statement, spending time with the work, it is evident that the artist is on to something. I enjoy how they assemble the work as well, as they talk about the process of doing it, making clay models. So I think that's noted to think about the process that goes into it, and the reading of the individual works one by one really helps me to understand more about this conversation of surrealism and abstraction. And yes, the work is very detailed and very intricate. So based on that, I am happy to have seen this application again, and I do want to change my score. So I am going to take application 42 from my original score of 24 to 26.
Great. Thank you, Barry. This is Gail. Kim?
This is Kim, and I gave a combined score of 26, which I'd like to stay with for this applicant. I agree with both Barry and Barbara on their comments. I think it's fascinating work, and I think it's interesting involving science and realism and surrealism and the natural world. There's a complexity to it that I really enjoy. And the body of work, I think, is very strong in terms of consistency, but varied approaches to the various subjects.
This is Barbara. I would also like to add that in the metadata, this work the medium is oil and acrylic on panel. And so I think it's important for the panelists to note that that the tiny little nuances were not collaged on, but were painted on. And I think the metadata makes that clear. And I think that might have been misunderstood yesterday in terms of what was collaged and what was painted on. And I don't know if that would change any of the panel's score, but like the one I'm looking at now, the dimensions of the piece is 15 inches by 9 inches. And that's a lot of, that's a lot of detail, shown here. Okay, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Yes, this is Barry for the record. I had brought that up yesterday. Just reading the statement, it was using sketching and collage to finalize the composition. Yeah, so based on that feedback, thinking on the work through yesterday, looking at everything, and really spending time with it. I mean, I already spent a lot of time with it, but really, as I had already had thoughts on this work, but this was one of the applications yesterday I want to spend some more time with, and that's what caused me to increase my score on it.
Okay.
This is Gail. Any further discussion before we move on to scoring? Okay, I will turn it over to Krista.
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0042. If I can start with Barbara on this one.
Okay, I really enjoyed the amount of time that we're spending today on these on this second round. And I am going to take my score of 25 and bring it up to 26 on this.
And reasoning behind the additional increase, please.
Just the conversation we're having, taking more time and examining the intricacy of the painting quality, which is, highly detailed realism, with the splashy abstract expressionist background. And to pull that off, it takes a lot of skill.
Thank you. And Kim, if I can have yours next, please.
This is Kim. I'm staying with my score of 26.
Thank you. And Barry?
This is Barry, and for the reasons noted earlier, I'm increasing my score from 24 to 26.
Thank you. We're looking at the final panel scores for application 0042. Kim at 26, Barry at 26, and Barbara at 26 for an average of 26 even.
Thank you, Krista. Okay, we will move on to application 0043. And we will start with Barry this time.
Perfect. Application 0043. I gave this applicant, looks like I increased my score. It is now a finalized 28. Oh, yes. Yeah, I really like this work. I think we all universally agreed about this work. This is a very strong applicant. They meet all the criteria for what we're hoping to see in a fellow. And I look forward to what my further panelists have to say around the applicant.
This is Kim, and I just want to reiterate, this was, for me, the strongest application consistently with the criteria. That's the reason I gave a combined score of 30. It shows technical mastery. They have a very complex conceptual development. There is so much research that goes into this work. I see a very consistent and original vision that as a painter, and I see the artistic impact influence within specific community and genre of art very strong. And I want to say too, because this work is dealing with at times specific histories within the state of Nevada, that was a perk for me too. I just feel like this is for the Nevada, this fellowship. I think this is, for me, an added bonus for this particular body of work.
This is Barbara, and I am really taken with this work. I think it's on all the points that the fellowship is looking for: community impact, depth, consistency, and high caliber of work, artists, process, and intention. It's all there. And I think as what we can do on this panel is to really encourage artists like this to continue and to develop and to show support for this kind of work. I'm going to increase my score for the first time, give applicant 30, from 29 to 30.
Big 30.
30.
All right, this is Gail. Is there any further discussion before we move on to scoring?
I would just like to comment too that
Kim,
know,
can
it is-
you identify yourself, please?
oh, this is Kim. It is obvious that this person has been working for some time, and I would consider this a kind of a mature portfolio of work. And so I think sometimes it's daunting when people are applying for these. There's such a diversity in how much time someone has practiced. And so that is also difficult too, to try to balance that. But I think that, this is showing us someone that is very committed to their creative artistic career. And, this is their life. And, they are doing such a great body of work that I just feel that, for me, this was what I was looking for in terms of what I would like to see a fellowship award. So.
And this is Barbara. Barry, can I ask, is there a way that Kim and I might persuade you to, I don't know if this is appropriate, to take a closer look and perhaps raise your score so the panelists can agree on this applicant?
I was just going to bring that up. So I don't know how we broach this conversation, but can we talk about the intricacies of this work versus application 0017 and what are the glaring, and I as a visual artist, I never want to compare artists. I don't want to do that. But I think listening to how this artist approached the development of the work and reading how application 0017 does something very similar, I'd ask my panelists what it was for this application. I think Kim kind of actually touched on it, but Barbara, there are similarities in the style of the work.
Yes, there are.
In some regards.
But I find that the originality of some of this work takes it one step higher. And when you look, when you examine these paintings, they're a complete surprise. There's nothing predictable about any of it, and that's what I can say.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and just to clarify, this is Kim, just to clarify, we are looking because the public doesn't understand what we're looking at. And so we are looking at representational, figurative, large scale, mural, very complex subject matter with multiple figures, ground, lots of things. And so there is a similarity, and they're also dependent on history and bringing in all this research into the work. For me, I feel like this has a more maturity and originality to the way that they're handling their medium, the paint. And so I see this, for me, it's a unique way that they are executing these large scale works. And so that is something that I was drawn to, but equally, I was really interested in how these develop in terms of their research and, the work that goes into it in the pre-production, so there was so much, there's so many layers to pull back with this. Yes. And I think for me, it exceeded, and that previous work, I think we'll get there at some point that we looked at. I think that they are moving forward. That is great work. And like you said, it's very hard for us to say, compare, it's apple to oranges, but, if I just want to add some clarity to that. I'll leave it at that.
That's what I was looking for.
This is Barbara. Well said, Kim. And I think the artist statement here of this applicant is really clear and spot on in terms of matching that to what we are looking at. Yeah, there you have it. I just wanted to add that. I'm finished.
This is very, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, let's big 30. Let's do it.
Yes. Okay.
This is Barry. I am going to increase my score, which I already previously did yesterday, for application 0062.
No.
Wait, yes.
0043.
43. I'm sorry, I just marked that. I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, from a 28 to a 30.
And I'll go through scoring real quick and we will confirm. This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0043. And if I can start with you, Barry.
This is Barry confirming my new score of 30.
Thank you. And Barbara.
This is Barbara confirming my new score of 30.
Thank you. And Kim.
This is Kim confirming my score of 30.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0043 are Kim 30, Barry 30, and Barbara 30 for an average of 30.
Great, thank you so much.
I have a question just in general.
Kim, can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, sorry, this is Kim. I'm curious if once the decisions are made, are the statements and the work made available to the public, so people who have applied are able to see what a successful applicant's does that happen at all, or is
For the record, Harry Ward, Deputy Attorney General. For one thing, this is an open meeting, so everything you guys say is transcribed, and they would get a copy if they requested a copy of a public record. They could possibly get a transcript of what you guys are doing right now. But this is done in the open meeting.
No, but this wasn't my question. I'm talking about the general public isn't seeing the individual applications.
No, they do not see, this is Krista, they do not see the individual applications or the works that were submitted with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'll save it for when we talk about afterwards, just to ask about, if I'll continue this conversation, okay?
Hey, this is Tony for the record. Kim, one thing we do on this is we utilize a lot of this for professional development opportunities for the field. So there are ways that the work that you do, the panel reviews and the process come to light in the additional professional development that we do for our artists. So it's part of the discussion and process. And certainly each panel and review is different and unique, but there is opportunity for all that you're sharing to be shared down the line.
Thank you.
Okay. We will move on to application 0062, and we will open it up for discussion. And we'll start with Barbara, if you are ready.
Yep. This is Barbara. And oh, okay, I am ready. So this was another applicant that we spent a lot of time on yesterday, and for good reason. The skill of this work is superior. The intention was well met. And here I would like to state that the impact would be on genre more than probably community. I think my constructive criticism on this was balancing the message with the medium, and that the technique was more prevalent than the message. And my score of of 25 was because of that. And I feel like this artist has got a lot of promise. However, I think that when we look at a work, we don't want to praise just the technique. We want to be drawn into the message as well. And so I think I feel comfortable at this point anyhow, keeping my score at 25.
This is Gail. Thank you, Barbara. Barry?
This is Barry. This is the only, with the exception of the previous applicant, that I had given a 30. Yes, there is, I do feel that, I do agree with Barbara that the execution of the work and the statement around the work do not fully align without knowing, I mean, and also there wasn't much information given in comparison. Actually, there wasn't much information given about the work overall. But so that to me could bring into question where this artist could be at in their career. A really robust statement of work is developed over time. It is rather challenging to really be able to do that, to get the scholarship to know about how to really talk through your work. But it is very necessary as well as we get to places like this. But I do think that this work is superior from an execution perspective. I do think that when I look at the criteria for which we're scoring, it hits everything from, with the exception of the abilities, the statement about the work. But I do think that in comparison to some of the other mediums, this is a positive break away from that because this work works in so many dimensions. It is paint, it is drawing, it is cut paper, and it is also, as was made from Kim yesterday, created for different formats that could go in the way of installation, steel cut. Your point that you made yesterday, Barbara, in terms of the size of the work, these works are, for the technique, are rather large works, but are still very intricately detailed. And I think from, you know, there needs, when I think about really great art, I love to be pulled into the art, and then I love how I'm taken a step further by reading about the development of the art and the artists themselves. This is definitely an eye catcher. And I think, you know, with some further refinement down the line, this artist can help to really to procure more of a stronger statement around their work. I say all that to say I'm going to definitely hold my score steady at 30 and would encourage a deeper conversation with my further panelists about this work, because I do think it's very exciting.
This is Kim, and I'm thinking about what Barbara and Barry just said, and I'm looking at my scores. Broke down for demonstration of artist intent, 8, consistency and exceptional caliber of work, 8, and evidence of artistic impact, influence within a specific community or genre of art, 6. I'd like to raise it, this number 3, 2 points to 8. So that's going to raise my overall score 2 points, because I do think that this, in terms of genre of art and specific community, thinking also about how this work is reflecting ecology and environment, I think it's very strong. I think it has a lot of potential, like I said, to be possibly as public art, you know, if you change the actual paper, which would be very fragile, to some other type of material. And so I'm excited, but I'm also with Barry in terms of the statement being developed. And perhaps this artist, one of the constructive ideas I have is to really talk about the specific symbolism and, you know, identify what is in these individual and how they relate. And so captions would be very helpful in this case to talk about the things that they bring up in the statement for the individual pieces. are these specific, a specific ecology, or, are the endemics, let's discuss that. So I'm raising my score 2 points.
All right, this is Gail. Thank you. Kim, is there any further discussion before we move on to scoring? Okay, Krista.
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0062. If we could start, Barry, with you, please.
This is Barry confirming my score of 30.
Thank you. And Barbara?
This is Barbara confirming my score at 25.
Thank you. And Kim?
This is Kim confirming my new score of 26, and I just explained why I raised it 2 points.
Perfect. Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0062R. Kim 26, Barry 30, and Barbara 25 for an average score of 27 even.
All right, thank you, Krista. We will move on to discuss application 0068. And Kim, let's go ahead and start with you if you're ready.
Yes, this was another applicant that I gave a full 30 score, and I'm going to reconsider this. I really like this work. I think it has such intellectual rigor, the concepts behind it. I love the fact that, this is not conventional 2D work. I mean, it's even hard to even kind of put it in this realm because there's a lot of different things that are going on within this practice. They are a transmedia artist essentially. And, but I was really excited about the discussion and inviting the community, and I just think it's going somewhere, and I would like to see it supported. And it also has it deals specifically with a audience within Nevada too, and they seem to be exploring, but I think maybe my score is just slightly too high in terms of artist intent and process. And so I'm going to lower it by a point for number 1, number 2, 2 points. So it's going to be 28. Because I think, they are in the process of evolving and they're going forward in a positive way. But I feel like it's not as fully resolved as it will be in the future. So my final score will be 28 instead of.
Thank you, Kim. This is Gail. Barry?
This is Barry. I'm really excited about this work, and I think this work is going to be really great as it continues to mature. I mean, I brought the point up yesterday. I love the installation aspect of it, and I love the minimalism, maximalism that it brings in. Very simplified messages with very large impact. So I'm really excited to see more of this work over time. I did increase my score yesterday. I think I raised it by 4 points. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on holding that score of 25.
Thank you, Barry. Barbara?
Okay, yeah, I agree with the other 2 panelists. My biggest criticism on this was in the presentation, and I think my score of 22 will hold because I really want the artist to understand how critical it is to present, to have the samples give us a clear invitation to the work, and not have it rely on the description. So I'm thinking I'm going to stick with 22. I think that this work shows a lot of promise, and I love the trans nature of the different mediums. And I think the aesthetic is trying to come through, and it will get there. So yeah, so those are my comments.
All right, this is Gail. If there's any further discussion before we move on to scoring?
I'll say, this is Barbara. I'll say one more thing, just to be specific. The imagery that, or the samples that were not as telling as we would like, or as I would like, were the two of the stills of the project. And yeah, and I don't know if I could say that I think if there was a short video clip of this would be really helpful. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, we will turn it over to Krista for scoring.
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0068. Barbara, if I can start with you.
This is Barbara, and I have a score of 22.
Thank you. And Kim, please.
This is Kim. As I just explained, I reduced my score 2 points from 30 to 28.
Thank you. And Barry.
This is Barry confirming my score of 25.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0068 are Kim 28, Barry 25, and Barbara 22 for an average of 25 even.
All right, this is Gail. Thank you, Krista. I'm going to suggest that we do one more review and then take a 5-minute break. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's move on to application 0069, and we will open up for discussion.
Give us just a moment here.
Yep.
This is Barbara. I also want to say to the to Kim and Barry, oh, I'm on the same one, that I like it when we can, kind of be in agreement, and when our scores are fairly similar because of our conversation. And I know on the last applicant, we had a little bit of a variation, a 6-point variation. But I'm hopeful that in future conversations that we can discuss this and get a little bit closer in those numbers. And
This is Tony for the record. Barbara, I want to be careful with the comments that you're saying there. Again, please, panelists need to be comfortable that their scores are their scores and reflect that. So while I appreciate what you're saying and what you're doing, just make sure that I don't want panelists to feel pressured to change scores if you do not feel pressured to change scores. Thank you.
No, yeah, yes, noted. However, what I was trying to say is that our conversations, I like our conversations, and that we're getting into, hearing each other's points of view on this.
Okay, so we're on 0069. Barbara, if you'd like to start.
Okay. All right. Okay. I found this work to be extremely compelling. I wanted to look at it. I felt the artist's intention was coming through. I thought the quality of the work was good. And I thought that it made an impact on the genre. I feel that, again, with some continued growth, that they're going to expand on this, and the work will just, get stronger with time. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there was anything that I gave as constructive criticism. I have to look back at my other notes, but this this work I find is very intriguing. And getting to the metadata here. Yeah, I think it was scale that I brought up as constructive criticism. The size is on some of these is modest, and I can imagine if it were larger, the impact would be even stronger. Thank you.
This is Gail. Thank you, Barbara. Kim, would you like to go next?
Yeah, this is Kim, and revisiting this work and my scores. You know, I'm also, when I'm modifying scores, I'm thinking of in the context of the broader applicants and how I scored and keeping my scores consistent. And I really like this work. I'm a photographer. You know, I can see the skills and the formalism, and there's so many things about this, but I feel that my score is just slightly high for this particular body of work. And in the first, I gave a 9, second, consistency 9, and evidence and artistic impact. And I'd like to move all my scores to 8. So it's going to be 2 points lower. Because I feel that the work, it's very lovely, and there's kind of a vagueness in terms of the work and how it relates to the statement. So I think there's room for improvement to really flesh out that statement in relationship to this body of work. So I'm going to go to a score of 24 from 26.
This is Barry. You know, based on the conversation that we had yesterday, I had originally scored this work, I think 2 points lower. I think for me, because we had a number of conversations around landscapes, and the point was brought about the construction of the landscape, the perspective. I brought up a point about exposure. I'm not speaking about exposure from the perspective of how a photographer takes into account this notion of exposure and the creation of it. I'm more looking at like the interplay between like where like the vocal point set. There's this style of construction that's used in these images where I think for me looking at this, there's a consistency that I'm not necessarily seeing that would like cause me to move my score up higher. I like the creation of the work. I think that's very interesting, and this work has a lot of strong purpose, and in the development of it is going to continue to bring this work along a ways. As a viewer, I wonder, you know, whenever someone interacts with that work for the third criteria, like how they'll receive that work. And like just the discovery of like where am I to go while viewing and setting with this work. So I did move my score up yesterday, but I am going to keep my score at a 23.
Okay, this is Gail. Any further discussion before we move on to final scoring on this? Or at least round 2 scoring on this? Okay, hearing none, we'll turn it over to Krista.
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0069. And Kim, if I can start with you, please.
This is Kim. For reasons that I just stated, I moved my score 2 points from 26 to 24 for my final score.
Thank you. And Barry, please.
This is Barry confirming my score of 23.
Thank you. And Barbara, please.
This is Barbara confirming at 26.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0069 are Kim 24, Barry 23, and Barbara 26 for an average of 24.3.
This is Gail. Thank you, Krista. All right, we are at about almost 12:15. So is 5 minutes enough for everyone, or would you rather have 10?
May I ask when our lunch break is going to be?
a great question. Tony?
Hi, this is Tony. Since it is 12:15, you may want to just do lunch now and do a 30-minute if that works for everyone.
Sure.
Does 30-minute work for everyone for a lunch break?
Yes,
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
So we will reconvene at 12:45. Go ahead and mute and turn your video off.
Hello.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Gail. I'm having technical problems with submittables.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into the next applicant and it's on the list, but when I hit the applicant to pop up, I just
Mhm.
get a blank.
Okay, let me see if I can have a staff send you the visual for that.
Hi, which application are you looking at?
We're looking at 0073 next.
73, okay.
Thanks.
It might be helpful if you close that browser and open a new one and try logging back in. That might fix the problem. If not, I can email you images.
Okay, I'll try that right now.
Thank you, Barbara.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on. We are having a storm here, but I don't.
Did it come back up for you?
Trying. It's waiting.
I woke up to snow this morning, just a little bit.
Oh, you
We
did?
were in the desert.
Okay, so, all right, so I'm back in and let me see if it'll work. Fingers crossed. Yes, I'm back.
Yay.
Gail, if you're saying something, you're muted.
I'm just talking to myself.
Yeah, I saw your mouth moving.
Yeah,
I'm like,
thank you.
talking to us.
Yeah, no. Okay, so our participants. Okay, I don't see Barry yet, so we'll hold off until Barry joins us.
I think yesterday Barry dropped off the meeting completely and then came back in. Just, we'll probably see that happen again. So I don't know, Sapir or Stefan, which one of you is host? But
He's raising his hand.
Oh, thank you. I will promote Barry to panelist. Thank you. And Stefan.
Yeah, I've been here. I just have been in the audience. I just didn't get promoted back in.
I'm gonna reclaim host and promote you to co-host so you can share your screen.
There's Barry. Great, okay. Tony, do I just have the okay to get started again, or do you want to welcome everybody back?
And Tony, for the record, we're still recording, even though we can continue recording, correct?
That is correct, Harry. We left it on during the lunch. This is Stephen Reed for the record.
Oh, okay. Great. All right, this is Gail Rappa, Nevada Arts Council board member. We are reconvening after lunch for FY23 Artist Fellowship Grant in Visual Arts 2D. We are going to return to the round 2, reviewing the panels, and we are on panel number 0073. So if you panelists can pull that up so that we can move on to that discussion. And whoever's ready can just go ahead and get started unless you need me to call on you.
Okay, this is Barbara, and we're looking at applicant 0073. And yeah, I thought this was a really strong body of work, and I thought the artist did a great job of transferring their intention with the medium. This is oil paint with oil stick and oil pen. And I think the work is original in terms of the way the figure's been distorted in just a real colorful way, where you see a lot of passion, and at the same time, she's dealing with her the favorite line I liked in her statement was the aging and raging, and what that means. And so I thought that these works really coincided well with the statement. I think in terms of the genre, it would have impact just as a way of going beyond. It's all oil, but it's oil stick, oil pencil, and paint. So it's a combination of using various aspects of oil on the canvas. And yeah, so I gave a score of 27, and I feel comfortable with that score. Yeah, that's what I want to say for right now.
Thank you, Barbara. Barry, would you like to go next?
For sure, for sure. This is Barry. I love the work. I think it's super inquisitive and very evocative, and I think the statement aligns exactly with what the artist's intent is for the work. I think for the community, it will be exciting. I gave this applicant a score of 27, and I will stick with that.
Great, thank you, Barry.
Okay, this is Kim. Yeah, I mean, I really love this work, and I'm reflecting on my score, which is 21. And, I keep kind of returning. This is a body of work that it's very unique in vision. Barbara's right, the statement and intent, the process really aligns. There's so many things going on. I think there is still room for development, and I'm excited to see where that goes. But so I'm kind of feeling like I need to raise the score, because it's exciting, and I just feel like my score was a little bit low.
Kim, if I can interrupt your.
Hold on just a second, Barbara. This is Krista. I think that you might be looking at your preliminary scores, Kim. The scores that we were at.
Oh, okay.
Round 1 is the tab that you want to look at, and you were at a 24 on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad. Okay, I was looking at my
Yeah, just make sure you're looking at that right.
I did exactly what I think I should do. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
And that's what I was going to mention. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. Great work.
All right, this is Gail. Is there any further discussion on application 0073 before we move on to scoring?
Okay, perfect. We'll get over to that real quick. And Barbara, this is Krista. Barbara, that's what I figured you were going to say, but figured it should probably come from us. All right, this is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0073. Barry, if I can start with you, please.
Confirming my score of 27, Barry.
Thank you. And Kim?
This is Kim confirming my score of 24.
Thank you. And Barbara?
Yes, this is Barbara confirming my score at 27.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0073 are Kim 24, Barry 27, Barbara 27, for an average of 26 even.
Great, thank you, Krista. All right, this is Gail. For the record, we are going to move on to application 0078 for discussion for round 2. And Barry, we'll start with you this time.
Yep, for sure. So I think with this work, it's really strong. I love how we spent a lot of time talking about this body of work yesterday. It's really exciting scale wise, it's there. I love how it kind of makes the viewer wonder the difference between what has been placed there in collage form and photo form and drawing. So there's a really great blending. I love to be able to discover these things after the fact. 'Cause I'm like, oh, like that lets me know that the artist and their practice and their execution of the work is on par. If like I'm looking as a person that's looking at so much of this already, that's looking to discover the difference in the two. I'm excited about this work, and I know it's very hard to make striking, well, it can be challenging to make striking works that are simply just 2 colors. And I think this artist did an amazing job at that. So I'm going to stick with my score of 25.
Thank you, Barry.
Barry, this is Chris. You may be looking at the wrong scores as well. Your score at the end of round 1 was a 27 on 0078. You're muted.
I am looking at the wrong application. That is why.
Yeah, I was.
so sorry about that.
I was.
Yep. I'm sorry. I think I didn't even get a chance to I tabbed it based on the last sheet you had sent in, and my passion vote was not in there. So this is my passion vote.
Yes, your
Yes.
passion vote. 00.
Yes, yeah. So this is my passion vote. Yes, I made all the comment about that earlier. So yeah, I'm sticking with my score for my passion vote.
Perfect, thank you.
And for the record, this is application 0078 and not 0082.
Yes.
Thank you, Barry. Kim, would you like to comment?
Yeah, this is Kim. So we did discuss this application earlier, so I'm going to stick with that conversation. And I did raise my score 2 points, and I'm going to stay with my score of 20 for this applicant.
This is Barbara, and yeah, we did discuss this at the beginning of the session today, and I'm feeling comfortable with my score as well. And I don't think there's anything further to say other than, I really encourage this artist to continue down a very interesting path.
This is Krista. Kim, we had you at 21 with your score change earlier. Can you confirm?
Yeah, I'm looking at the list you gave us. So can you please pull up the list so we can see that? I think that's the disconnect, because I'm not seeing, you have that and you have the changes. And so
Yes. So
I don't have it written down what I changed my score to.
that's okay. So and I'll show that in a moment when we go into
Okay.
scoring, but we had you at the end of round 1 with a 20. And then when in discussion earlier, you had said 21. to get.
Okay, let's go with a higher score that I
Right.
changed it to. Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. And then unless there's further discussion, we'll move into the scoring. Sorry, Gail.
No, you're fine. Yeah, go ahead, Krista. Let's look at our scores.
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0078. If we can start with Barbara, please.
Yes, this is Barbara, and I confirm my score at 24.
Thank you. And Kim, please.
This is Kim. I confirm my score at 21.
Thank you. And Barry, please.
This is Barry confirming my score of 27.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0078 are Kim 21, Barry 27, and Barbara 24 for an average score of 24 even.
Thank you, Krista. Okay. We will move on to application 0082. So if everyone can pull that up. And we will open it up for discussion. And Kim, if you're ready, we'll start with you.
This is Kim. Excuse me. Yeah, I gave this applicant a score of 28. I think this is really, there's a complexity to this work and the process and the intent that I think is very evolved, and there's originality to it. I think it's all the things that this applicant excelled in terms of criteria. So I'm going to stay with my score of 28.
Great, thank you, Kim. This is Gail. Barry?
This is Barry. I had made comments accidentally about this in the last session, but for application 0082, I love the work. I love the scale of it. I love the detail. I love the statement around the work, and I love how it can be engaged with in a community perspective. So I'm going to keep my score of 25.
Thank you, Barry. Barbara?
Yeah, this is Barbara, and I agree with the other panelists. This work is very strong. It's complicated. It's very accomplished. And I'm going to raise my score because of the notion of the artist's interest in global language through drawing. I think I want to elevate my community impact, because I think this is I think drawing is one of the most direct mediums there are. And I think that the use of photography and drawing together has really made these works very exciting. And I am going to raise my score 2 points to 27.
Great, thank you, Barbara. Is there any further discussion before we move on to scoring?
Just a moment on this one. This is
Yeah. Go for
Barbara,
it.
your score is currently a 28.
It is. Then I raise it to 29.
Okay.
This is Barry. Yeah, we spent, go for it.
No, I was just looking at the number, the applicant, the changes, and I was just making sure I had everything correct. So I'm good here.
Perfect. Yeah, based on the feedback, I do want to revisit this application, this applicant, I'm sorry. I agree with my panelists. This is like a very strong blending of work. I too am just a lover of illustration and drawing. So it's at the root of my practice and everything that I do. And to think about, that global impact and the universal language of drawing and everyone getting it, I do think from a community perspective that will be very engaging work. So I do want to increase my score from 25 to 27.
I thought yours was at 28. I'm confused.
No, for 0082, it is 25.
Oh, okay.
Any further discussion on this one before I move us into scoring?
No.
Okay. This is Krista, and as soon as it wants to share, there we go. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0082. If we can start this one with Kim, please.
This is Kim. I confirm my score of 28.
Thank you. And Barbara?
This is Barbara. I confirm my score at 28.
You raised it 1 point.
Oh,
in the last
I'm so
discussion.
sorry. I've been scribbling here. Okay. I did raise it 1 more point, and this is correct. 29. Final answer here.
Thank you, and Barry.
This is Barry, confirming my raised score from 25 to 27, based on the comments that I gave earlier around the work.
Perfect, thank you. Final panel scores for application AFG 23-0082 are Kim 28, Barry 27, and Barbara 29 for an average of 28. And just real quick, so that you guys can see when we're doing this, what we have in here, which you're not seeing live because I'm changing as we go, but the scores as I'm highlighting these for myself are what the last scores are that you gave. So when we pop into this, if your score is blue, that means that you've changed it during the conversation that's happening right now. So you can always look at these as well as we're going.
This is Barry, thank you.
All right, this is Gail. Thank you, Krista, for that. That's helpful. All right, we will move on to discuss application 0088. So if you can pull that up. And Kim, we'll start with you.
Okay, this is Kim. This is work that I really enjoyed. I think it's incredibly strong conceptually and in execution. I feel that I'm going to stay with my my score, but I have to say that it was one of my personal favorites in the direction and the concept subject that this is going in. So I really enjoy this work.
This is Gail. Thank you, Kim. Barbara?
Yes. I found that the figures in the landscape were some of the most haunting and powerful images that we were presented with throughout the throughout all the samples. And work that stays with you is really I think important, that it's not forgettable. It stays with you. And the reason I gave a score of 25, I'm hoping this is right, yeah, of 25, is because the trajectory I thought was going away from these powerful images. And I don't think that the landscapes without the figures had the same impact or power that the other work did. And that's not to say that it mattered that they came earlier or later, but as a whole, I thought the samples were not balanced because the figurative work with the landscape was so much stronger. So I think that the artist has a little ways to go before they can get that impact on the landscapes alone. And that is why I gave the score of 25.
Thank you, Barbara. Barry?
Yeah, I originally gave this a score of 24. I think the works are exciting. I do like the pairing of the figures with the landscapes, but the landscapes alone and the later direction of the work, which is always hard for a creative because, you know, these do have a way to travel, but they're showing promise. And I also can enjoy that this artist dedicated last year what appears strictly to landscapes. Every single one of these landscape works were all accomplished in a year. So looking at work from a thematic and a series perspective, I do like the fact that this artist exclusively like kind of dedicates themselves to that body of work. And as we look at these landscapes, like there's promise that will come from them. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep my score of 24. And I do have a question for Barbara. You did make a point yesterday and today a few times about the portraits being haunting. I'd love to, if you could add more color around that.
Sure. Let me get back to the. Well, the sample of the African American gal with her camouflaged sweatshirt, the way that her profile works with the landscape, and she's picked up and both brought in the landscape, but her gaze at the viewer is so strong and so it just stops you in your tracks, that I just love the way that the landscape in the background was brought into the figure, and then the gaze of the figure was just so powerful. So there was this juxtaposition of space that I really liked. And then in the next sample, it was the use of lighting on that figure's face, which I would suggest to you and Kim. That's just the use of light to get him to come forward, and the way he's placed in that landscape. I found that to be really, very powerful and memorable. And that to get that feeling of space by using color just shows a lot of expertise to me.
Thank you for that. Yeah, this is Barry. I was looking across this work, and again, going back to an artist dedicating themselves to their practice and their series, like there's clear evidence this artist does that. This particular series with the figures and the landscapes were all a unified size. And I do like to see from the landscapes how they are playing with different size mediums on that as well. These landscapes some of them are significantly larger than the portrait pieces, but to make a nice tight portrait at that scale too also helps to magnify the intensity of the figures inside the portraits too. And I'm sure that was done intentionally, so I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
This is Kim. I'd like to follow up. I think for me, and I like haunting, I think is a good term to use. I mean, these have a photorealistic look to them. They're not quite there. They're looser, but there is a nuance in the selection. And I'm guessing that they're working from photos, but they're good photos if this is the case. And they are, what is so important to photography is the decisive moment. And that's not just placing something in the frame as it's moving, but it's also the nuance and the intensity of the gaze and how we are able to see into that person. And I feel like I'm able to see into these individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's very, they really dug deep into, and I think I'm hoping that these people do have a relationship to these landscapes, within the space, and maybe we don't know this, but was there a conversation with the person that is depicted and the artist? So I'm guessing this, but I think those things are really strong within this body of portraiture, and I do really like the landscapes. They are, and I appreciate that they are different. And I think it's hard to put, like you said, this very, it's there, you know, there's a graphic quality, there's all these things, and they kind of jump out at you, and then to put the landscapes. And I think it was really bold of the artist to include this and just say, well, I had this direction, you know. So I understand, Barbara, what you're saying, but I'm looking at the entire group of work, like with all the artists. And so I'm very excited about where this work is going and, you know, what they have presented.
And it's really interesting because this is very, I'm sorry, Barbara, go for it.
Oh, you know, I'm looking at the landscapes carefully, and the metadata doesn't show that much. You know, they're 35 by 34, 20 by 20. The point of view is pretty, you know, not that original. I think the use of paint is good. And I see that she's developing that in a way that where these landscapes kind of merge together spatially. The figures in the landscape jet apart. And my thinking is that, like with so much work that, you know, that artists do, either I'm not there yet to recognize the you know, what she intends with these landscapes. But I do see that there's a real conversation with the figure in the landscapes. What I would suggest to this artist is, I don't know if they feel that the landscapes are fully realized yet. We're using the word potential in the landscapes, but let's say they're not fully realized yet. I would have suggested she put in more of the figures and maybe just one or two of these. But since they put in as many as they did, my feeling is that in the mind of the artist, these are where they want to be. And, you know, maybe I'm just not caught up to them yet, but I just don't think they're nearly as interesting as the other work.
Yeah, I think one thing also is, you know, again, this artist is in a development phase of their work. That's, I think on the premise of that, I do want to increase my score because these initial portraits with the combination of landscapes were created in 2016 and 2019. There's a full 3 years before this artist makes the bold decision to move away from that. And from an execution perspective, it's very clear that they do know how to create, because even in the foreground of the portraits are moments of those landscapes. So I do believe that they're onto something, and I like to see that in an artist. And also, Kim, you said something that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. I love the notion of finding the decisive moment. I will hold that with me near and dear forever. So thank you for that. But I think that in the discovery of that, they will be able to find that. And based on that premise, I'm going to move my score from a 24 to a 25.
All right, this is Gail. Thank you, Barry. Is there any further discussion on application 0088 before we move to scoring? Okay, Krista.
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0088. If I can start with Barbara on this one, please.
Yes, this is Barbara. I'm confirming my score at 25.
Thank you. And Kim?
This is Kim. I'm confirming my score at 29.
Thank you. And Barry?
This is Barry confirming my score of 25. I moved it up a point based on the comments that were made previously.
Perfect. Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0088 are Kim 29, Barry 25, and Barbara 25 for an average score of 26.3.
Thank you, Krista. All right, this is Gail. Let's move on to application 0093. You can pull that up and we can begin the discussion. And Barry, we'll start with you. You have that available.
Okay, great. This is Barry. For applicant 0093, I gave a collective score of 27. That was a score that I gave initially, and it looks like I stuck with. Yeah, I'm really interested to have a conversation about this now that we've been able to have a deeper dive into some of the applicants. Barbara, you brought up some really great moments of the artists finding themselves in select works and others from an execution of the work, it being, I can't quote you exactly for what you said, but essentially like them finding themselves in some of the works. This work is exciting. It's bold, it's colorful. I love the combination of bringing the nature to the city. I think these works will jump out from a community perspective and from a public art perspective. It looks like every single one of these works are public art. And I think about that as a fellow is, what happens when you're challenged to create works that aren't viewed in a public art mural setting. So on that, I do want to open up the conversation to my panelists to discuss a little bit more about that.
This is Barbara. Yeah, I really enjoyed looking at these murals as well. My comments yesterday were about not so much the color or the application, but the imagery itself had, I don't know if I used the word generic, but they didn't come across like I could identify the individual artists that did it, but rather a generic sampling of, this, whether it's a bird or a frog or a caterpillar, and then that was blown up. What I would have liked to have seen would have been the artist's interpretation of the bird, the frog or the caterpillar or whatever it was, and then have this colorful presentation. But it looked a little stylized in something that we've seen before, with the exception of the red goldfish, with the American flag. I thought that was starting to get a personal aesthetic into the work, as well as a strong mural.
This is Kim. Yeah, I mean, I think, we have such a wide gamut of work that is meant for public viewing in public space. There's an educational aspect to this. And then we have work that is much more inner and contemplative. And, so there's kind of a pull to really move between all this kind of work and to give credit to the wide variety of practices, creative practices that we are looking at. And, and I think this really excels in terms of the specific community or genre of art. And I see what Barbara's saying, that sometimes she's not seeing that unique voice, within this work. But for me, there's some things that are happening in terms of, working outside of the rectangle, first of all. I think these are super dynamic, energetic, the butterflies, these things are just leaping off these buildings. And there's just little things, like we are, I'm thinking we're all birds of a feather, the rainbow flag with the bird, and I like the kind of humor and how direct in a simple way that these are activating these spaces. And I see a lot of potential for them and for them to develop a more unique personalized style. But I think they're, it's happening here. So I'm going to stay with my score. You know, I think it's exciting work, and I'm glad to see that they're getting, you know, large commissions, obviously, because we're seeing these on buildings and interior spaces. So yeah, it's good work.
This is Gail. Is there any further discussion before we move on to scoring? Okay, so Krista, we are going to do the scoring for application 0093.
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0093. Barry, if we can start with you, please.
This is Barry. I'm going to confirm my score of 27 and stick with it.
Thank you. And Barbara?
Yes, this is Barbara. I'm confirming my score at 24.
Thank you. And Kim?
This is Kim, confirming my score of 24.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0093 are Kim 24, Barry 27, and Barbara 24 for an average of 25 even.
This is Gail. Thank you, Krista. All right, we're going to move on to our final applicant in the round 2. We are on 0096. So if you can pull that up, and we will open it up for discussion.
Okay, I'll start the discussion. Again,
Barbara, can you identify yourself, please?
oh, I'm sorry. I'm Barbara, and I thought the statement of this artist really moved me. And when I look at the work and I look at the struggle, and I'm using the applicant's word struggle, to get these to come from her inner self out into the world, and just the way she's done it, I think was really powerful. I think that even though the imagery is imagery we see a lot, I think the way she applied the imagery gave a more unique voice to some of these standard things. And I think the application was good. And obviously the community impact is there. So I am sticking with my score of 26 for this applicant.
Thanks, Barbara. This is Gail. Barry, you want to go next?
Yeah, I like the work. I like the story of the work. I like how the work comes together. It's got a graphic quality to it, sort of dreamlike in certain aspects of it. I think I'd initially scored this higher, and I brought it down a bit just for reasons relating to just the consistency across the work. There's some of these works that really jump out, and others that are on the way, very much so on the way. And to see it in an additional public art format also takes the work to a new space. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with my current score.
This is Kim. Can you remind me of my score, because I may be looking at older that I
have 21 for you.
Kim, this is Krista. Kim, your current score is 21 on this.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to stay with my current score on this work. I really like this work. I really like the statement and the descriptions of the work. I feel that this is going somewhere in a really positive way. I was, really glad that this artist included this. Looks like it's a kind of a piece on a water tank, so it's a kind of public art and public space. I think this is such a great direction to just open these up, make them larger and graphic, and get them into these public spaces. And so I'm really excited to see them, develop. I think they have an original, unique, this very graphic style, and, encourage them, keep applying for these things. This is for everyone, actually. Keep applying. This is so important, because oftentimes we're seeing work and, we really like it, but not everyone's going to be at the top of that list. And so this is the thing that we just want to make sure that people realize that, this is a process. We applied, all of us, multiple times in our, so yeah, so I like this work a lot, and I'm going to keep my score at 21.
I'd like to add a comment. This is Barbara. With this work, it's very accomplished in what it does, and the artist is talking about using the textured, either, I don't know if it was plaster or what she used to build up the surface of the canvases. And I think I see a stretch in the artist in learning to put their message across in various ways. And I like that stretching, from what Kim said about the mural to the thinly painted canvases to these thickly painted canvases. And yet throughout, regardless of, whether it was a mural, a thinly painted or a thickly painted, their aesthetic came through. And I feel that I would encourage this artist, if they applied again, to give close-ups of, at least one of the works, so that the change in media would be a little bit more apparent. And yeah, and I think that's my final comment.
This is Gail. Thank you, Barbara. Are there any further comments or discussion before we move on to scoring? Okay, Krista, we're on application 0096.
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application AFG 23-0096. Kim, if we can start with your score.
This is Kim. My score is 21.
Thank you. And Barry?
This is Barry confirming my score of 25.
Thank you. And Barbara?
This is Barbara confirming at 26.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application 0096 are Kim 21, Barry 25, and Barbara 26 for an average score of 24 even.
Thank you, Krista. So we have gotten through round two. Now we're just going to ask you to the panelists to please review your scores. If you'd like to change your score, again, we'll have to please state the application number, score change, and reason for justification of the change, and then we can move on. So just one more final review. I think that's where we're at. Is that correct, Krista?
I believe so. And I've, I thought I resorted it. Hold on just a moment. This is Kristen. I'm resorting so that you can see in the score range. So you can see where they're at.
And Gail, just step and read for the record. At this time, we will just ask the panelists to verify this ranking, and if they're comfortable with this ranking, we'll kind of move on. And if they are not, then we'll proceed to a round three.
Correct. Thank you, Stefan.
And this is Stefan Reed for the record again. Panelists, you can take some time and look at the top applicants here. And if you think this is, if you're okay with the ranking, or if there's something else you'd like to discuss, please bring it up and we'll move in that direction.
This is Barbara. I'm comfortable with these scores. Nothing I want to change.
Thank you, Barbara.
This is Kim. I agree with the scores.
This is Barry. I agree with the scores.
Okay. Thank you, panelists. Okay, so. All right, so we will actually, I think we'll put that back on. Oops, I'm on the wrong page here. Sorry.
That is correct, Gail. This is Stefan for the record. Krista, you'll put the spreadsheet
scores-
back up and then read
yeah,
the
let's-
scores through.
Yeah, I think that's where I was at. Sorry, I was on the wrong page. Krista will go ahead and read the applicant number and the average score so that we can have it on record.
This is Krista. For the record, we'll go through the applicant numbers and average total scores for each. For the final scores for each, applicant number AFG 23-0043 has an average panel score of 30. Application AFG 23-0082 has an average panel score of 28. Application AFG 23-0062 has an average score of 27. Application AFG 23-0028 has an average score of 26.7. Application AFG 23-0088 has an average panel score of 26.3. Application AFG 23-0042 has an average panel score of 26. Application AFG 23-0073 has an average panel score of 26. Application AFG 23-0068 has an average panel score of 25. Application AFG 23-0093 has an average panel score of 25. Application AFG 23-0017 has an average panel score of 24.7. Application AFG 23-0069 has an average panel score of 24.3. Application AFG 23-0078 has an average panel score of 24. And application AFG 23-0096 has an average panel score of 24.
Thank you, Krista. Okay. So the Nevada Arts Council Board would like to thank the panelists and the staff for your thoughtful work in reviewing the FY23 Artist Fellowship Two-Dimensional Works category application.
Hey, Gail, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we, this is Stefan for the record. Can we take a 5-minute recess here for just 1 minute?
For 5 minutes, yeah.
For 5 minutes?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, Stefan.
Yep, there's something we need to discuss, absolutely.
Okay, so I have this at 1:37. So we'll come back at 1:40. I'm sorry, 1:45. How does that
Sure.
sound?
Yep.
1:45? Okay.
Excellent.
Excuse me, Gail, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Will Barry and Kim and I have an opportunity to give input? Okay, great.
Yeah, we're gonna ask the panelists to stay on after the call.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay,
This is Krista. Gail, you are free to move forward. Thank you.
great. Thank you so much, Krista. So this is Gail Rappa for the record, Nevada Arts Council board member. We are going to move on to agenda item 9. I will continue. I'll start over again for reading that. The Nevada Arts Council board would like to thank the panelists and staff for your thoughtful and very thorough and work in reviewing the FY23 Artist Fellowship Two-Dimensional Works category applications. The Nevada Arts Council Board will meet in the next several months to review the panel's recommendation and vote on the FY23 Visual Arts Fellowship recipients. After board approval, the Nevada Arts Council will announce the award decisions and fellowship recipients based on available funding. The Nevada Arts Council will post fellowship recipients on their website and social media pages. All applicants will also receive written notification. I also want to just take a minute to personally thank the panelists. As an art instructor, in the past, I've often encouraged students to attend these because it's invaluable to hear this level of critique. So I really appreciate the time and care that you all took in doing this. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend yesterday's. It sounded like it was very robust. I also want to thank the participants that are joining us to listen in. We appreciate that as well. Okay, move on to item number 10. We will move on to agenda item D, public comment. If there's anyone joining today's meeting who wishes to provide public comments, I will turn it over to the staff.
This is Stefan. For the record, I have not received any public comment.
And this is Krista. For the record, I don't see any raised hands in the chat.
Okay. Thank you for that. So seeing none, we will move on to agenda item E for possible action, adjournment. So I am going to adjourn this meeting at 1:47 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And again, thank you everyone who joined us, and thank you for all of our patience with our technical issues. We appreciate all the time and energy. The board really appreciates the time and energy put into this. So thank you.
And panelists, please stay on for a couple of minutes for a little bit of chat afterwards.
Hi, guys, you did great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Steph, did you stop recording?